I never imagined my boss's challenge would lead to a life-changing revelation. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I sat in that conference room, the air thick with tension. My hands trembled, slick with sweat, as I faced my boss, a towering figure with eyes that pierced straight through my soul. He flashed a devilish grin, a challenge resting on his lips. "Can you handle the truth about this company?" he asked, and my gut churned, the room dimmed, shadows creeping in as he spun tales of mismanagement, betrayal, and a secret that could shatter everything I knew. Each syllable hit like thunder. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, a deafening rhythm amidst the silence of my stunned coworkers. There was no way to brace myself for the revelation that lay ahead. I grew up on the outskirts of the city, my dreams as expansive as the skyline, but now they felt like a fading echo. I loved my job, my team. We were a family bound by long coffee breaks and late-night deadlines. But now, as the boss revealed the hidden truths, those bonds felt flimsy, teetering on the edge of a precipice. That I thought of my sister, struggling with her own demons, and my friends who depended on me. Would they understand? Would I still have their support if everything changed? Panic surged through me like ice water. I wanted to run, to hide from the oncoming storm, but there was no escaping the reality washing over us all. Then, the unexpected twist hit me hard. A whispered conversation with someone I adored. Was it love or betrayal lurking behind those lingering glances? My heart clenched at the thought, a lump rising in my throat. I glanced around, searching for reassurance in familiar faces, but found only shock mirrored back at me. What horrible truths hid behind the polished walls of our once trusted company? What sacrifices would we need to make to save it? My world felt like it was cracking, pieces shattering away like glass. I could feel the weight of my choices settling on my shoulders. My hands shook, and I held my breath, waiting for him to unveil the final secret that would plunge us into chaos. As the intensity grew, the air thickened with unease, and just as I thought I had grasped it all, you wouldn't believe it, lights flickered ominously, plunging us into darkness for a heartbeat. Time stood still, and a chill raced down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to be revealed. That I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but nothing came out. I was lost. Where would I find the strength to face the truth? And could our fragile ties survive once the secrets spilled into the open? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the lights flickered back to life, my heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat echoing the turmoil within. The dim glow revealed the apprehensive faces of my colleagues, each person frozen in a tableau of uncertainty. My boss leaned against the wall, the confidence in his demeanor replaced by an unsettling tension. As the remaining shadows retreated, I could see the flicker of fear in his eyes, to a rare glimpse of vulnerability. What was happening? I searched for answers in the dismissive flick of his wrist as he collected himself. "Let's not let theatrics distract us," he scoffed, but his usual bravado had faltered, leaving a void filled with unspoken fears. I could sense that whatever he had hidden was weighing heavily on him too. Tension lingered in the air. I turned to my closest teammate, Claire, seated beside me with her legs tightly crossed. Her brow furrowed, and I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. "What do you think he's going to say?" she whispered, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I shook my head, the lump in my throat growing heavier. Then came the sound, the sharp click of an office door opening. It felt like the world had come to a halt, every head turning towards the sound. A new figure emerged from the shadows, a young woman, trembling yet determined. "Jessica!" I gasped, realization crashing over me like a wave. But it wasn't just her presence that struck me. She was holding a folder, its pages visibly shaking in her hands. My heart sank. Jessica had long been particular about maintaining her distance from office politics. I couldn't fathom what brought her into this storm. Is this about the audit? She whispered urgently, eyes darting nervously around the room. The atmosphere thickened with uncertainty, and Jessica, seemingly sensing the vulnerability of the moment, whispered louder. You need to know why things are unraveling. You deserve the truth. She stepped forward, and my instinct told me her voice was urgent, pleading for attention. And then she opened the folder. My breath hitched as papers slipped, revealing detailed reports of embezzlement, manipulation, breaches of trust. The company's foundation rattled by betrayal. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room, a collective gasp rising from my colleagues, scrambling to digest the magnitude of the incriminating evidence laid bare before us. What Jessica divulged next sent tremors of disbelief through me. I overheard them plotting, she confessed. People in this very room, colluding to push us out and steal what we built together. Her voice cracked under the weight of the words, but she held her ground, fierce determination glowing in her eyes. The room buzzed with whispers, accusations flaring like wildfire, igniting our fears. As chaos erupted, I felt my heart sink, recognizing the rifts dividing the very team that had once flourished in unity. Claire's hands trembled against the table, and I caught her glancing around at our co-workers, some accusing, others defensive. With every passing second, we were unraveling. My own mind was clouded with questions. Who could I trust now? The threads binding us felt worn and frayed, ready to snap. I stole a glance at my boss, whose expression had shifted to one of regret and worry. Was he involved? Or merely caught in the throes of this revelation? As I grasped for clarity, the weight of my own decisions crept up my spine, a twisting complaint in my gut. How could anything be resolved when the very foundation of our work was built on betrayal? My thoughts drifted to my sister, her struggles swirling again in my mind, a reminder that my fight extended beyond these walls. But could her strength even guide me now? A sense of isolation settled over me like a shroud. In that moment, though, something unexpected drew me back, a gentle hand resting on my shoulder, Claire's voice a soothing balm amid the storm. We'll get through this, together, she whispered. Nothing matters if we don't stand united. Her words held a spark, a flicker of hope amid the disarray. I seized onto it, grasping her warmth as I tried to refine my resolve. But just before I could respond, the chaos quieted as our cynical boss met Jessica's gaze. An unspoken challenge danced between them, and suddenly the atmosphere shifted. Jessica, you're brave, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. But his eyes bore into her, reflecting a blend of fear and admiration. Then came his shocking proclamation, one that felt like the ground itself had shifted beneath us. But bravery comes at a cost. You may have just signed your own death sentence. A tense silence fell upon the room, thick as fog, leaving us all teetering on an emotional knife edge. I couldn't breathe, each heartbeat echoing the uncertainty of everything now revealed. What would happen next? Would this divide us in ways we couldn't repair? And more importantly, who would be left standing when the dust settled? My mind was racing, overwhelmed by the potential fallout, the weight of loyalty and betrayal trapping me in its vice. I leaned forward, desperate for answers, wanting desperately to diffuse the tension, but instead, I felt the floor give way beneath me as the truth crashed into an infinity of unknowns. The glimmers of hope flickered on the edge of my consciousness, but a dark reality loomed larger than ever. The air grew dense with the weight of unspoken truths, and I felt as if the walls were closing in. Jessica's revelation hung heavy in the room, a fragile thread of courage weaving through chaos, yet the looming threat of consequences loomed relentlessly over us. I caught Claire's eye, her expression an anxious mix of fear and resolve, and in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. The silence fractured, voices erupting into a cacophony of confusion and mistrust. I could hear murmurs ricochet off the walls, colleagues questioning alliances, desperately seeking answers that felt so out of reach. The once welcoming office now felt like a prison, a stage for betrayal and broken dreams. As I searched for clarity, I was filled with a gnawing desperation to shield Jessica, to protect the brave soul who had stepped into the storm alone. "You shouldn't have come here," I whispered fiercely to her, stepping closer as the pulse of uncertainty beat beneath my skin. "They won't let you leave without retaliation." Jessica's wide eyes caught mine, shimmering with fear and a glint of something else, defiance. "Someone had to do it," she replied, almost breathlessly. "If we don't face the truth, we will be swallowed whole. You all deserve to know." Her voice was steady, yet I could hear the tremor beneath her steadfast composure. Unpredictable glances moved between our boss and Jessica, the room both captivated and horrified. My boss remained unyielding, a storm brewing behind his steely gaze. "You think you're the first to challenge me?" he questioned, his voice taut, yet I could see the spark of fury flicker in his brown eyes. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." Tension thickened in that moment, viscerally palpable, and I could feel Claire's hand squeeze mine, grounding me in a reality that felt precarious. "We deserve to know the truth," she declared, her voice cutting through the noise. A ripple of agreement spread among a few, but doubt lingered uncomfortably in the battered hearts of many. Would unity arise from this moment, or would it deepen the divide? Jessica stood her ground, and though fear pulsed through me, I could not help but be drawn to her fierce resolve. "I will not be silenced, not now," she said, her voice rising against the cacophony. "I want to confront those who have conspired against us. We have a right to fight back." My heart soared and sank simultaneously. Courage glimmered in her eyes, but as the threat of retaliation loomed, I couldn't shake the unpleasant reality of our world, a world where weakness was exploited, and loyalty was a double-edged sword. But at what cost? I urged, frustration bubbling over as I imagined what they were capable of inflicting. Then, like a sudden clap of thunder, our boss shot back, his features darkening. "You're forgetting something very important, Jessica. They won't just come for you." His gaze swept across the room, lingering on a few faces before settling back on Jessica. "They'll come for all of us. Trust is an illusion here, and you've only unmasked the monster lurking beneath." An audible gasp echoed through the room, and fear clawed at my heart. Who were they exactly? I looked frantically to Claire, desperate for reassurance as the tension morphed into something far more dangerous. "This can't happen," I whispered hoarsely, urgency seeped through every word. "We can't let this tear us apart." The minutes stretched into eternity, conflicted emotions rippled through me with every heartbeat. I glimpsed the faces of my colleagues, some nodding in reluctant agreement, while others scowled, their loyalties wavering. The reality we had built together was fracturing, and the stakes were climbing higher than I could comprehend. Just then, an unexpected voice piped up a quiet, seemingly timid team member, Will, who had kept to the shadows, his voice barely a whisper. "What if we band together? They can't take us all down, right?" Although small, his suggestion carried weight, and I felt the tentative spark of unity flicker among us. "Collectively, we're stronger," Claire echoed, her resolve buoyed by Will's unexpected courage. Hope blossomed. However small, and spread like a ripple through the crowd. But beneath it all lurked a sense of dread. What if our unity drew them out? Before I could digest this new twist, a shrill ringtone cut through the haze of emotions. It was my phone vibrating against the table, the screen lighting up with a name that eclipsed everything else. My sister, Ava. Uncertainty gripped me. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. But the raw panic etched across her face during our last call lingered like a storm cloud in my mind. "Answer it," Claire urged quietly, her hand reassuring on my shoulder. I glanced around, capturing the apprehensive faces, the silent plea for hope, and I swallowed my fears, grabbing my phone and answering. "Ava, please," her voice trembled, urgency lacing each word. "I don't know how to explain this, but you need to hear me out. You can't trust everyone at your office. They're in danger." The sheer disbelief and dread swept over me, drowning my thoughts. What dangers awaited us, lurking beneath the skin of our fragile unity? My chest tightened. The storm was larger than we had ever imagined, and the revelation had only just begun to unfold. The air pulsed with tension as Ava's words echoed in my mind, anchoring me to a reality I was painfully unprepared for. "What do you mean? Who's in danger?" I demanded, trying to restrain the panic threatening to overtake my resolve. "Ava, slow down," Claire urged, stepping closer to me, her presence a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty and dread that I wish I could explain everything, but it's complicated. "Just trust me." I overheard a conversation. "There are plans to dismantle your team. They're targeting specific people, ones they see as threats," she stammered, the urgency in her voice rising with every beat. My heart raced, a wildfire fueled by anxiety and disbelief. "What are you talking about?" "Who, Ava?" "Anyone who's made waves. Anyone who could challenge the status quo, including Jessica. They know what she did, and they will retaliate." Her voice dropped to a whisper, seeping dread deeper into my heart. "They know about you too. You're all at risk." The walls of the office felt like they were closing in further, trembling under the weight of Ava's revelation. I glanced around the room, Jessica still standing resolute amid the chaos, Claire's face a mixture of concern and disbelief, and Will, who seemed as if he were holding his breath waiting for what would come next. "Can you get out of there?" Ava pressed, her voice fierce and protective. "Please, just listen. Form a plan. You need to act before they do." The urgency in her tone made the gravity of the situation ground into my bones. How could we face this? How could we stand against not just our boss but an entire system designed to quash dissent? We had broken the surface, but could we swim against the current that was rising beneath us? "I'll keep my eyes and ears open, Ava. But I need specifics. Who can we trust?" I pressed, the need for answers churning like a storm in my gut. I can't say just yet. Just tread carefully. There's more at stake than you realize." The line crackled, and I could hear the fear creeping deep into her words. "I swear, I'll figure this out. Just stay safe," I said, my stomach knotting with a rush of urgency. I hung up, face flushed with fear and uncertainty. "I have to tell them," I muttered, the words tumbling out before I could fully grasp their implications. It felt like a betrayal, yet a necessity. If we were to have a chance against whatever lay ahead, we would need to unite our vulnerabilities in truth. Before I could gather my thoughts, Jessica stepped forward, her resolute expression tightening. "We've already risked so much. What else could they possibly do?" "They could make us disappear," I countered, an edge of panic in my voice. "My sister, she just warned me that they're coming for anyone who poses a threat. We may be in deeper than we thought." Gasps permeated through the crowd, the weight of skepticism etched across my colleagues' features. Yet, I refused to back down. In the face of danger, we can't afford to isolate ourselves. We have to decide: we stick together, or do we let fear drive us apart? I pleaded, searching desperately for affirmation. "The choice is ours," Claire chimed in, her voice steady, an internal flame igniting determination within her. "If they want to silence us, well, fight back, but we need to be strategic. We can't act rashly. We need a plan." Jessica nodded, her earlier fear morphing into a fierce glimmer of rebellion. "Let's use what we know to our advantage. Well, gather information, talk to people, find out who's with us and who isn't. If they think they can sow distrust among us, they're mistaken." Hope flared momentarily an ember amidst the chaos, but shadows lurked on the edges of my mind. Would it be enough? Could we truly stand against this tide? An unexpected burst of applause reverberated from the back of the room. It was Will, his voice gaining momentum. "If we stand together, well, show them they miscalculated. We need a safe space to strategize. Somewhere away from prying eyes." Claire interjected, "We'll need to stay connected and alert. Perhaps we can meet during lunch, split into smaller groups to keep the information flowing while our guards are down." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd, yet I could feel a mixture of dread and anticipation swirling beneath the bravado. But before we could dwell on our newfound unity, the door swung open, and there he stood, our boss, a predator's presence encroaching, the tension instantly shifting. "I couldn't help but overhear your little gathering," he said, a sly smile creeping across his face. "You really think this is going to end peacefully? No one leaves this place unscathed. Just remember, chaos has its consequences, you've all chosen this path." As dread cascaded over us, I felt my pulse quicken, a stark realization igniting inside me. We were not only fighting for our roles, but they were now threatening lives. And just like that, the seed of our resistance began to take root, a collective defiance blossoming amidst the darkened storm. But the question loomed large: what would it truly cost us to stand together? Would unity survive when secrets unspooled and the enemy was closer than we could fathom? "Whatever happens, we're in this together," I vowed, the weight of courage solidifying within me, though the whisper of doubt still lingered in the shadows, waiting for the moment to unleash its fury. The days that followed were a blend of quiet determination and unrelenting anxiety. Each moment seemed stretched thin, and with every new dawn came the undeniable knowledge that we were walking a precarious line. The warnings echoed in my mind, making sleep an elusive companion. Our clandestine meetings grew in strength, yet an undercurrent of fear hummed beneath our unity. During lunch breaks, Jessica and Claire would research our options, while Will and I observed anyone who could be close to our boss or whom we suspected could be a potential threat. It was an exhausting game of cat and mouse, but for every shadow that loomed, the flicker of hope strengthened. We were aware that the very core of our purpose was at stake. One afternoon, as the sun tilted low in the sky casting golden rays on the pavement, I caught sight of Ava from the corner of my eye. She was making her way past our usual meeting spot, a flicker of urgency darting in her eyes. "Can I talk to you?" she called softly, her voice laced with a tension that prickled my skin. I nodded, leading her away from the bustle of the break room to a quieter corner of the office. "Ava, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's worse," she whispered, glancing sidelong as if afraid of being overheard. "There's a rumor going around that they plan to make an example out of someone. They want to send a message and make an impactful event, if you will." My heart raced. "What do you mean? How do you know this?" "I overheard conversations. They're laying low for now, assessing who the strongest resistance is within the group. They're looking for weaknesses to exploit." She crossed her arms tightly, her knuckles white. "I fear for you all. You can't afford to be reckless. Please, think carefully before moving forward." As she spoke, the weight of her warning clawed at my insides. We couldn't retreat, we couldn't back down. But could we afford to forge ahead without a full understanding of the risks? "I know you care," I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But we're not going to let this end without a fight. We have to be smart, but we mustn't be paralyzed by fear either." Ava's face softened for a brief moment, a flicker of admiration passing before her expression hardened again. "I'm still worried. Someone needs to talk to the others, but you must tread lightly." "I wish I could do more." I squeezed her hand, desperately wanting to dispel the worry etched across her forehead. "Just being here helps more than you know." "Well, keep each other safe." The words had barely escaped my lips when the overhead lights flickered ominously, sending a shiver up my spine. A hushed silence fell over the employees as our boss appeared again, his steel gaze penetrating the solace we had crafted. "Isn't it time you all returned to work?" he asked, a condescending smile plastered across his face. "Or are you plotting something you'll regret?" I felt my heart drop as his words hung in the air like a heavy fog. A question slipped from my lips before I could stop it. "What do you want from us?" His smile widened dangerously. "All I want is to watch and learn. The more you scurry about in fear, the less control you'll have over your fate." With that, he turned on his heel and strode away, leaving an unease that curled around my spine. "Decide wisely," he had said, taunting us, leaving behind a haunting uncertainty lingering in the air. That evening, we gathered after hours in a dimly lit meeting room, our spirits tethered by threats and hopes. Faces were grim, yet the fire of resistance brewed beneath. Jessica sparked the conversation, laying out various possibilities. If we create a distraction that draws attention away, others may feel emboldened to join our side. We could stream online discussions about our project, a public showcase of our work, but as she spoke, I felt a chilling surge of doubt. What if this bold move led our enemies right to us? What if it fails? What if we're all in over our heads? For a brief moment, silence swallowed the room. But Claire spoke up. Fear can grip you and freeze your instincts, but look where that's landed us. We've already taken risks. We came together when it mattered. We can't continue in shadows, and there it weighs an undeniable spark of hope, a possibility of light amidst the inky dark. Yet, as I turned to face my team, a chilling thought struck me. What if I had misjudged someone in our midst? What if one of us wasn't a friend but an insider, feeding information to our adversaries? The specter of betrayal hovered overhead, refusing to dissipate. "I'll watch closely," I murmured, "and if there's any hint of duplicity." Before I could finish, Will interjected, "We're family now. Whatever happens, we won't let fear cloud our judgment." As agreement swept through the room, a sliver of hope pierced the uncertainty. We clung to that small flame, desperate for warmth amid the encroaching cold. But as our plans began to take shape, a gut feeling warned me that that flame would be put to the test. Later that night, as I prepared to leave, I received a text from Ava. My heart plummeted as I read her words. "I can't stay, they're on to me. I have to go underground. I'll reach out when it's safe." Was it a warning or a goodbye? Unable to shake the gnawing sense of loss, I clutched my phone tightly, but deep inside, I could not shake the feeling that her absence would tip the scales of our already fragile resistance. And as dawn broke, a haunting question echoed in my mind: were we too late, or could this be the moment we would finally turn the tide? The answers loomed just out of reach, a labyrinth of treachery waiting to ensnare our resolve. The morning sun streamed through the cracked blinds of my apartment, illuminating dust particles that danced like tiny spirits caught in an eternal struggle. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, desperately willing it to buzz again with a new message from Ava. Heart pounding, my thoughts raced back to her last text, her words replaying in an endless loop. I felt raw, the chill of uncertainty clinging to me as fiercely as the shadows of the night. That I couldn't allow fear to redefine my focus. With a heavy sigh, I shoved the phone into my pocket and made my way to the office. The air felt thicker today, each breath a bitter reminder of the pressure weighing down on us. I arrived early, hoping the quiet would ground me before the chaos began. As I entered the meeting room where we usually gathered, I found Jessica and Claire already deep in conversation. The moment they noticed me, their discussion ceased, and they turned to face me, expressions tight with concern. "Have you heard from Ava?" Jessica asked softly, concern etching deep lines across her forehead. I shook my head, unable to muster the optimism she sought. "No, and it's driving me crazy. I hope she's safe." Claire stepped closer, her hand brushing against mine in a silent affirmation. "We'll figure this out together. Whatever it takes." As we began discussing our strategy for the distraction plan, dread curled in my stomach. My mind drifted back to the lingering thought of betrayal. What if someone is leaking information? I voiced, feeling the tension build. What if we can't trust one of our own? Jessica's eyes flashed with anger, but Claire placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "We've been through too much. We need to trust each other. That's the only way we'll survive." I wanted to believe that. But the doubt gnawed relentlessly, a persistent serpent coiling around my thoughts. What if I had let my guard down when I shouldn't have? The uncomfortable weight of deception hovered over us, stifling the air. Just then, Will rushed into the meeting room, panting slightly and clutching a stack of papers. "Guys, you need to see this. I just got back from the library." He tossed down the sheets, and our eyes widened as we scanned the headlines. It detailed corporate scandals, protests from employees, whistleblowers revealing malpractice, and, most startling, a former employee who vanished after trying to expose the truth, presumed dead. "This could be our safe haven," Will proposed excitedly. "If we expose what's happening here, we might not just save ourselves but others too." They can't silence everyone, but the exhilaration of the idea was quickly overshadowed by the weight of fear. What if they come after us? After our families? I interjected, panic rising in my throat. The walls seemed to close in, memories of our clandestine meetings flashing through my mind, reminding me of every risk we had already undertaken. I understand your fear, Will said firmly, determination darkening his eyes. But we can't hide forever. If we act decisively, we can rally others who feel the same. We could ignite a movement. His fire ignited something within me, and I felt a flicker of hope in a place long starved of it. I closed my eyes for a moment, visualizing Ava's presence, her conviction and spirit. If we could stand united for something bigger, maybe we could ensure her sacrifice was not in vain. Suddenly, my phone vibrated, shattering the tension. I snatched it out, heart racing. A message illuminated the screen from an unknown number, cryptic yet urgent. Meet me at the cafe on 7th and Main. I have vital information. Come alone. Every muscle in my body tensed. It could be a trap, or it could be one last chance to learn what happened to Ava. I need to go, I stated, a wave of resolve washing over me. Are you crazy? Jessica exclaimed. You can't just walk into something like that. Let me go, I insisted, my voice steady. If it's a trap, they'll just find me anyway. But if I don't take this chance, I risk losing Ava for good. I need to know. As I stared into their hesitant faces, my conviction grew. This might be our only hope. I can't do this without knowing. Stay here and continue working on our plan. I'll be back soon. They exchanged wary looks, but Claire eventually nodded. Be careful. Well, hold down the fort. I barely registered their words as I sprinted out of the office, my heart pounding in rhythm with my footsteps. The streets blurred around me, and as I neared the cafe, dread twisted in my gut. Would I find answers or more questions? As I entered the cafe, a wave of cool air washed over me, but I barely noticed the chill gripping my skin. I scanned the room, my eyes landing on a figure seated in the corner, familiar, yet unrecognizable. Ava. My heart leapt, but an icy grip tightened around it as I approached, every step fraught with hesitation. I wasn't prepared for what I might learn. The shadows of doubt loomed heavy, reminding me of the stakes buried in our struggle. But as Ava glanced up, her eyes wide and filled with something unreadable, a chilling thought crossed my mind. What if, in the end, the greatest betrayal lay not outside our circle but within it? A secret that could shatter the fragile foundation we had built. Before I could say a word, her mouth opened, and she whispered, I have something to tell you. Something that could change everything. And at that moment, I understood that whatever revelation awaited, it could either set us free or destroy us entirely. The cafe hummed with muted chatter and the clattering of cups and plates, but the world around us faded into a blur. My eyes were locked onto Ava's, searching for answers or perhaps a glimmer of relief. Her presence ignited a familiar warmth, but I couldn't shake the chill of uncertainty that seeped into my bones. Ava, I breathed, my voice threading through the air like a fragile promise. I can't believe you're here. I've been worried sick. Her gaze darted around the room, as if checking for unseen threats before settling back on me. We don't have much time, she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to tell you what I found out. The urgency in her tone sent my heart racing once more, half filled with hope and half drenched in fear. What is it? What do you know? She looked down, her fingers twisting around the strap of her bag. It's about the project, the one we've all been working on. There's more to it than we realized. It's not just about the company's profits or our job security. There's a sinister undercurrent that goes much deeper. Panic surged through me. What do you mean? Are you saying they're involved in something illegal? Something dangerous? Ava's eyes flickered with the weight of reality. Yes. I stumbled across documents, communications-coded discussions that seemed to indicate plans for something catastrophic, suspicious dealings that could endanger lives, people like us and those we care about. I sat back in shock, absorbing the ramifications of her words. The distractions we had been fighting against suddenly took on a horrifying new meaning. Why would they do this? What's the endgame? She leaned closer, her voice trembling. That's what I was trying to piece together. We're just pawns in a game expendable. But there are people willing to pay a heavy price to keep these secrets buried. I felt my insides twist. Have you told anyone about this? No, she admitted. Not yet. I knew I had to find you first. A surge of protectiveness rose within me. Ava, you went through all of this alone. You could have been in danger. What were you thinking? She flinched at my outburst. I know, I want to make it right. I didn't want to drag you into something I wasn't sure of. But now we can't stay silent. We have to find a way to expose them. Bring this to light. Her determination danced in her eyes, igniting a flicker of my own resolve. We can do this together. We'll find a way. But deep down, uncertainty lingered like a dark shadow. What if we weren't prepared for the depths of what we would uncover? Ava, I hesitated, what if exposing this puts us all at risk? What if they retaliate? She took a steadying breath, her composure settling like a cloak over her shoulders. I understand the dangers. But her voice softened. If we don't take action, we are allowing them to dictate our fate. We owe it to ourselves and to everyone who might suffer because of their greed. Just as I was about to respond, a sudden crash echoed through the cafe. The front door swung open violently, and in walked two figures dressed in dark suits, scanning the room. My heart raced. They exuded an aura of authority, but also something chilling, something predatory. Ava and I exchanged a glance, realizing our meeting had just grown perilously more dangerous. We need to get out of here, I whispered urgently, my mind racing with escape routes. No, Ava said vehemently, her determination surging once more. This is too important. We can't walk away now. Before I could protest, she stood up, drawing the attention of the men, who began to stride purposefully in our direction. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to pull her away from the potential disaster unfolding. But Ava's unwavering resolve anchored her in place. That I grabbed her arm, fear coursing through me. Ava, we have to go. Now, but it was too late. The men reached us, and one of them, a tall figure with steely eyes, smirked, a predatory glint betraying his intent. Well, what do we have here? Looks like our little secret isn't so secret anymore. Panic washed over me, but before I could formulate a response, Ava stepped forward defiantly. We know about the dealings, and we're not afraid to expose you. But you see, that's where you're mistaken, he replied, an unsettling calm in his voice. It's not just your jobs that are at stake, dear Ava. Your lives are too. The words hung in the air like a pall, and a sickening realization hit me like a blow. My heart plummeted as I grasped the depth of our predicament. In our quest for the truth, we had stumbled into an abyss, and there was no turning back. With urgency brewing in my chest, I pulled Ava back, whispering urgently, we can't fight them here. We need to run. But before we could make a move, the other man raised his hand, signaling toward the exit. You're not going anywhere. Not until we have a little chat about what you've uncovered. And as they closed in, the weight of our choices pressed down on us, the promise of freedom slipping away, each heartbeat echoing the truth. Sometimes, the pursuit of justice can bind you closer to peril than you had ever anticipated. The tension hung thick in the air between us, heavy with unspoken fears and the flickering candlelight casting shadows across the table. I felt as if the walls were closing in, not just from the imposing figures in front of us but from the enormity of what we had discovered. We're just asking questions, Ava insisted, her voice steady but tinged with a quiver of defiance. We have a right to know what's going on behind the scenes. The tall man, who had yet to introduce himself, merely smiled a thin, cold line that did not reach his eyes. Questions can be dangerous, Ava. You must understand that someone like you doesn't get to play with fire and walk away unscathed. What do you want from us? I demanded, my pulse pounding in my ears. What's your end game? You think we're just going to sit here and let you intimidate us? But intimidation is rarely necessary when people are motivated by fear, he replied, tilting his head slightly, as if amused by my bravado. His partner simply watched with a cold expression, like a predator observing its prey. Without thinking, I glanced at Ava, who seemed to draw strength from my resolve. "If you think we're afraid of you, you're wrong. We will go to the authorities. We will tell someone." The man chuckled softly, and the sound made my skin crawl. "Do you really think they care about the plight of two lowly employees? This isn't just about you, it's about a far larger game, one that far exceeds your small lives. You will remain silent because you know that your safety depends on it." Just as my heart sank, the coffee shop doorbell jingled, drawing the attention of everyone in the room as a barista appeared from behind the counter, wide-eyed and startled. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice wavering as she caught sight of the men in suits. I seized the opportunity. "Call the police," I urged her, my voice rising above the tension. "We need help right now." The suited man's gaze sharpened at my words, and without missing a beat, he turned to his companion. "Make sure she doesn't do that." Time felt suspended as I watched the partner's jaw tight. He nodded and approached the barista, who paled and stepped back. The confrontation spiraled as I rose to my feet, adrenaline coursing through me, but Ava grabbed my arm, anchoring me back down. "Don't," she whispered urgently, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't escalate this." My emotions churned, torn between the need to fight for our freedom and the stark knowledge that we were outmatched. In that instant, I felt a warmth brush against my hand. It was a piece of paper, crumpled and hidden beneath our table. I looked down to find a message hastily scrawled in pencil: "Follow the plan. I'm watching." My heart raced, a flicker of cautious hope igniting within me. It was a lifeline, but who had sent it and how were they watching? I slipped the note into my pocket, glancing back at Ava, whose concerned expression mirrored my own uncertainty. "You said you weren't afraid," I reminded her, desperate to pull strength from our shared resolve. "I am not," she replied softly, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly, betraying her calm facade. The room felt suffocating as the suit moved closer, a glint of malice sparking in his eyes. "Now, let's make this simple. You'll forget everything you've seen and leave with us." Or he paused, letting the threat hang in the air like a guillotine. "Or what?" I shot back, my voice edging towards desperation. "You'll hurt us? You can't silence the truth forever." His smile widened, but this time it was devoid of humor. "There are whispers of all kinds within our organization, and ghost stories can vanish as quickly as shadows." With the air growing heavier, I glanced once more at the barista, who stood frozen with fear, caught between witnessing our unraveling and wishing to refuse any involvement. "Enough with games. You'll come with us now," the tall man ordered. He reached out, his hand gripping my wrist with ice-cold authority. In that moment of contact, a sudden burst of energy surged through me, pulling from somewhere deep within, ignited by Ava's presence. "Get away from him!" Ava shouted, shoving his hand aside, defiance radiating from her posture. "You'll never control us." But the space that had once seemed like a haven now felt hostile. The pulsating weight of the moment crushed down on us with an unrelenting force. And then it happened. Everything shifted. From somewhere behind the coffee counter, a clattering sound erupted, breaking through the tension. The barista fumbled with a concealed object, a small device shimmering where the light met its edge. "Run!" Ava screamed as chaos flooded the cafe. The men stumbled back, the surprise freezing them momentarily, just enough for us to bolt. But just as we reached the door, the room erupted around us. What had begun as a quiet afternoon was about to explode into something we could never foresee. The world spun as I grabbed Ava's hand, and together, we rushed into the late afternoon sun, uncertain of what lay ahead, but knowing one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. We sprinted across the pavement, hearts racing, but with every step, dread clung to my gut. It was not just fear of the men behind us, but the haunting question of what truth lay ahead as we ventured further into the unknown. And then it hit me, a jiggle in my pocket, that note. What if the stranger was not a savior but a trap? The muffled whispers of worry tangled within me, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of hope. Was help just as dangerous as the men we were fleeing? As we turned the corner, there was no turning back. The path ahead stretched endlessly, filled with whispers of danger, secrets still waiting to be unveiled. The air around us crackled with urgency as we dashed down the alley, hearts pounding synchronously with the growing fear that gripped my chest like a vice. I pulled Ava closer, our hands tightly intertwined as we tried to navigate the narrow passage. The sunlight flickered through the buildings above, casting looming shadows that mirrored the turmoil within. What do we do now? Ava panted, glancing over her shoulder as if the suited men would appear at any moment. Her fear echoed mine, but I felt a weight pressing down my resolve. We can't keep running forever. The truth of her words sunk like a stone in my stomach. Our desperate escape wouldn't change the fact that they knew who we were, and I couldn't shake the sensation of being hunted. Ava, about that note. I hesitated, unsure if now was the right time to share my reservations. My thoughts were muddled with anxiety and the thrum of adrenaline, but I needed her to understand. What if the person watching us is not on our side? We need to find out who it is, she replied, determination igniting in her gaze. If we just keep running, we'll be caught for sure. I nodded, the spark of hope from her words reigniting the fight within me. There's a park nearby, we can hide there for a moment, think things through. The two of us squeezed through a battered wooden gate and into the sparse greenery of the park. The contrast of the open space against the claustrophobic alley was jarring, but it felt safe. For the first time since entering the coffee shop, I could breathe. We found refuge beside a weathered oak tree, its massive trunk offering a sense of shelter from the chaos outside. What do you think we should do? I asked, attempting to center my thoughts. First, Ava said, a spark of mischief flaring in her eyes, we need to think. No more running blindly. Let's figure out our next move. As I stared at her, I noticed the way her shoulders relaxed slightly, her fight against despair grounding her once more. It reminded me how much I admired her strength, how it had always been a beacon through our shared darkness. Taking a deep breath, I remembered the only course of action that made sense to me. We need to confront those men. Find out why they're after us and what they really want. She looked at me, surprise flickering in her gaze. Are you sure? We can't let them control the narrative, I cut in, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside. I want to know the truth. Are we just pawns in their game, or is there something deeper? Ava considered this, her brow furrowing in contemplation. Okay. But we need a plan. We can't just go in there blindly. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the park, snapping us back to the present. I nodded toward the edge of the trees where a figure emerged, walking casually but with purpose. It was hard to discern who it was, cloaked in shadows and uncertainty. Who is it? I whispered, tension seizing my throat as the figure grew closer. But as they came into view, a wave of familiarity washed over me. It was Marcus, a colleague from work. His eyes widened in recognition, and I saw something in his expression, relief mixed with concern. Thank God I found you too, he exclaimed, glancing around as if to ensure we were not being followed. I've been looking for you, looking for us. Why? I asked, anxiety threading my voice. Because I can help, he replied, urgency clawing at his composure. I saw what happened at the cafe and heard the threats. You're not safe. They want to keep this quiet. But I have a plan, one that can tip the scales in our favor. Eagerly, I stepped closer, heart racing at the thought of potential help. What do you mean? Marcus leaned in, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. There's more to it than you know. The men in suits are part of something bigger. There's a long history of corruption at the company, and you two stumbled onto it. That note you found wasn't meant for you, but it could be your key. A chill ran down my spine. What are you talking about? What do you know? He hesitated, glancing nervously at the entrance of the park before continuing. If we expose them, we can not only save ourselves but bring down the whole operation. But we need to act quickly. Are you in? my mind whirled with possibilities. Hope swelled within me, yet doubt tangled with it. Was Marcus truly on our side? Or was this another trap, another thread in the intricate web of deceit we were unwittingly ensnared in? Ava looked between Marcus and me, her expression conflicted. We don't have much choice, do we? As Marcus nodded, I felt a weight settle heavily on my chest. We were stepping into the unknown, and whatever truths emerged would forever alter our lives. All right, I said, my voice steadied by determination. Well, do it. But we're doing this together, no more secrets. For a fleeting moment, the uncertainty hanging over us felt lighter, as if a thread of light pushed through the shadows. But just at that moment, a rumble of thunder echoed through the sky, a stark reminder of the storm brewing both within and outside of us. And then, through the darkening clouds, an unmarked black van rolled into the entrance of the park, a sinister omen that jolted my heart. Get down! Marcus hissed, crouching low. The warmth of our hopeful resolve felt distant, replaced by the icy grip of danger that returned to wrap around us like a suffocating cloak. Before I could process our next move, a door swung open with deliberate slowness, revealing a figure clad in dark clothing, stepping out with an air of authority, the bearers of our impending doom. Just as the weight of dread pressed upon us, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, an unexpected sound in the tense silence. I reached for it, heart pounding, and caught a glimpse of a message that flashed ominously on the screen. They're closer than you think. Be careful who you trust. Everything I thought I knew shattered, doubt creeping back into every corner of my mind. The waiting game was far from over. The park was suddenly an arena, the stakes rising with every heartbeat. I crouched low with Ava and Marcus, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on us. The shadows of the trees cloaked us in a false sense of security, but I could feel the danger lurking at the edges. Those men in suits were relentless, and we couldn't afford a single misstep. Stay quiet, Marcus urged, his voice barely a whisper as we remained sheltered behind the thick oak trunk. As I peered around, I could see the black van parked discreetly at the entrance, its sleek surface reflecting the fading daylight. The figure emerging from it moved with a predatory Gracian air of authority radiating from him that sent a chill dancing down my spine. I didn't recognize him, but the look in his eyes was all too familiar. They were searching, scanning for anything out of place, and we were the perfect targets. That we need to get out of here, Ava whispered urgently, her hand trembling against my arm. They can't find us. Not now, let's wait it out, Marcus urged, glancing down the path to see where the man was headed. We have to know their angle, what they're planning. Running now might draw more attention than staying hidden. I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at my resolve. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being hunted like prey, the storm brewing above reflecting the chaos below, each growl of thunder echoing our fear. The cafe had been just the beginning, and we were now part of a game whose rules were painted in shadows. As the figure approached the park, I could hear his voice rise, deep and authoritative. I need you to check the area, he commanded, his tone clipped. They won't get far. I want eyes everywhere, panic surged. It couldn't just be idle threats. These men were determined to silence us for good. The weight of betrayal hung in the air. I hadn't just been questioning their motives, I was wrestling with the notion that someone within our fold could be guiding them straight to us. What if one of us, I started but hesitated, unwilling to voice the ugly truth. Stop, Ava interrupted, her voice a hoarse whisper. We can't turn on each other now. That's what they want. As the dark figure slipped deeper into the trees, we huddled closer, every breath fragile and tentative. Moments passed like hours, tension crackling between us as I wrestled with a million thoughts. I had to protect my loved ones. But this mission was larger than any of us. This was about survival, revealing truths even if they tore us apart in the process. And then it happened. A sound drew our attention, footsteps were heading toward us, quick and purposeful. They're here, Marcus whispered, his eyes wide with unfounded terror. Get ready. I hissed, my heart racing. Ava, you take the back, Marcus and I will act as diversions. Don't get caught, she breathed, a glimmer of fear dancing in her eyes as she slipped away into the shadows. It was time to face our fears. Hope was quickly replaced by a sense of Dutya hunger for justice that overshadowed the consequences. I felt a fire ignite in my gut, propelling me forward as I turned to Marcus. On my count, but before I could finish, a deafening shout echoed through the park. "We know you're here. There's nowhere to run." The men in suits emerged like phantoms, casting ominous shadows over our escape route. My mind raced, and instinct kicked in. "Scatter!" I shouted, pushing Marcus away just as I felt hands reach out for me. The moment was chaos embodied. We moved like fluid electricity, darting between trees and bushes, every step a gamble against the unknown. Adrenaline pumped through my veins as I ran. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind us, but my focus narrowed to a singular mantra: keep moving, stay free. With every stride, I felt the warmth of the sun pulling away, relinquished to the gathering gloom. The park's exit loomed ahead, the lures of freedom pressing me forward, but suddenly I felt a tug, a hand wrapping around my arm, spinning me around violently. "Got you!" coiled the voice, smooth and cold. That it was that same man from earlier, the one with the predatory gaze. "Now, where do you think you're going?" He grinned, unyielding. "You shouldn't have gotten involved, little moth. You've flown too close to the flame." I tried to jerk free, but his grip was like iron. "I'm not afraid of you," I retorted, feigning bravado, my heart hammering, a wild bird desperate to escape. His brow arched in amusement, though the anger simmered just beneath the surface. "Oh, you will be. Just remember, you can't kill what was already dead inside." The words dripped with malice, slithering into my mind like poison, but just then, a loud crash reverberated through the air, a scattering of branches and a thud like thunder. I glanced back and saw Ava, an unexpected fury igniting within her as she barreled across the clearing, her own voice breaking free with fierce desperation. "Let her go," and in that moment, it became clear the fortress built on fear would not hold. Ava was more than my sister, she was the embodiment of courage unbridled against the tempest. She charged forward, pulling the shadows of our fears into her grasp as she tore through the chaos, catching the men off guard just long enough for me to wriggle free. "Run!" I screamed, urgency surging through my being. And we did. Dashing toward the exit, I felt the weight of the world begrudgingly lifting. We weren't just fighting for our jobs or our dignity, we were fighting for our very lives. As we burst through the entrance of the park, the realization slammed into me like a tidal wave. This felt like a dance on the edge of destiny. There were no guarantees, but as I glanced at my sister, the spark in her eyes ignited a fierce flame of resolve. Together, we could unravel the deception that had woven itself into our lives like an unrelenting snake. We would confront the truth, face the betrayals that lurked in the shadows, and if we were to fall, we would do so standing tall. But just as freedom seemed within grasp, a screech pierced the air, the unmistakable sound of tires skidding to a halt. A second black vehicle had arrived, its silhouette ominous against the fading light. The night was quickly descending upon us, and with it the chilling affirmation of our enemy closing in. The men had a plan, and their web of deception threatened to engulf us. "Ready?" Ava's voice broke through my haze of fear, her determination radiating like a beacon. "Always," I said, holding her gaze steady, and we turned to face the dark tide that threatened to swallow us whole. "I'm tired of playing their games," I said, climbing the well of courage that bubbled within. "Let's end this now." Together, we stepped forward, resolve solidifying against the approaching shadows, knowing that whatever awaited us beyond the twilight could either break us or finally set us free. But whatever came next, I would fight tooth and nail to protect the ones I loved, not just Ava, but all those who dared to show fearlessness against a world that sought to make us cower. The final battle was waiting just beyond the horizon. And as I held Ava's hand tightly in mine, a whisper of hope surged within me. This time, we would not be the ones hiding in the dark. We would rise. Together, we would reclaim the truth, and in the stillness of that moment, before chaos erupted once again, I understood the essence of our fight: love, loyalty, and the undeniable courage that bloom even in the fiercest storms. Because as long as we stood united, we would never truly be lost. And in this battle for justice, we were finally ready to face whatever came next, with hearts ablaze and unwavering spirit leading the charge. "We've got this," I whispered, a promise havened in the shadows. Our journey was far from over, but this time we wouldn't walk alone. And as we braced ourselves for the storm ahead, freedom was more than just a dream, it was a purpose ignited by the courage forged through trials, a testament that no force could extinguish. Whatever fate awaited, we would face it head-on, together. The final act of our story was about to unfold, and this time, I stepped into the light with my sister by my side, ready to seize one last breath of hope, standing taller together than apart. I realized that sometimes the fiercest battles revealed the fiercest love, and in that revelation, I found my strength. And so, we took that first step into destiny, hearts ablaze, ready to fight and be free.